Hello students, this is Mr. Sims. We are on page 81, and this is going to be video number 2 for day 10's lesson. And we're going to evaluate expressions with fractions, and we're going to keep our orders of operations in mind. So I'm just going to jot this down over here, parentheses, exponents. Multiply, dividing, adding, and subtracting. All right, and keep in mind, we won't be worrying about the exponents piece. That's a little bit later on. So I got 3 examples here, all of which, as this spazzes out, all of which are examples of problems that have appeared on state tests before. So when you think about your orders of operations, the first step would be to look at for any parentheses. So in A, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the fractions that are inside the parentheses there. So in order to combine fractions, you have to have a common denominator. So I'm going to look at 4 and 2 and say, well, I'm combining 2 negatives. So I know my answer is going to be negative. So we'll just keep that in the back burner for right now. So I'm really taking 1/4, and I need to make another one with a common denominator of 4. So that's actually half's pretty easy. It's just 2/4. So I have taken 1/4 away, taking another 2/4 away. That's -3/4. And then I'm going to divide it by -4/7. So I know immediately that I have a negative divided by a negative, so I know my answer is going to be positive. So I'll put that down, or I'm going to start there. Now, I'm going to do this one by hand. So we're going to keep change flip. So we're going to go 3/4 times 7/4. Notice I took the negatives out, because when I know that that's going to be a positive, then I can just do the operations. Across the top, 21. Across the bottom, 16. All right. So then we take 21/16, and we got to make it improper or make it mixed. So 16 goes into 21 once with 5 left over, 5/16. All right. So now on the right side, what I'll do with this is just kind of talk about what I want you to do with the calculator, because now that we're allowed to use calculators. Excuse me. What I don't want is I don't want you putting this whole thing in the calculator, because there's just too many places for you to type something in wrong. So what I would be okay with you doing, is doing each piece of this with a calculator. I'll use a different color. So I would suggest doing this piece of it in the calculator, right? And then getting your answer. So I'll put this up here. Maybe you can kind of see what I'm doing. So I'm going to do -1ABC4 minus 1ABC2. And get that -3/4 that way. So then you would have -3/4 divided by -4/7. You should still be able to get the sign. So we know that the sign is positive, so then I could use the calculator to do 3ABC4 divided by 4ABC7, and you get 1 5/16 that way. All right, so that's what I'm okay with you using the calculator for. I don't want you punching the whole thing in, all right, if you need to use a calculator. All right, so the second example. Actually, the second one's very, very similar to the first one, right? But it's just written differently. This is a form of a grouping symbol, so I'm going to do this part of it first. All right, so over here, common denominator. Well, common denominator between 4 and 8 is going to be 8. Oops. Let me scribble that out. So I have to multiply 4 by 2, multiply 1 by 2. I get 2/8, which is really equal to 1/8. So I got 1/8 over -5/6. I know my answer is going to be negative. I have a positive divided by negative. 1/8 divided by 5/6. Okay, notice I took the negative out, but the reason I did is because I know the negative. I can only do that with multiplication and division, though. I can't do it when I'm combining. All right, so now, keep change flip, 1/8 times 6/5. We could do some cross canceling. 2 goes in here, 3, in here 4. So we get 3/20. And once again, do each piece of it on the calculator. If you're going to use a calculator for this, do the calculator for just the first part. Write it down, though. After you do it, write this piece down. Okay? Because the other thing is you got to be able to show your work, and you can't just punch the whole thing in the calculator. So, all right, and then the last one. In this one, it's very similar, but it's a little bit different because in this one, I don't have a grouping symbol, so I'm going to have to do the division piece first. All right, so now I'll go ahead and for this one I'll model with the calculator. So I'm going to take 1 ABC4 divided by, now when you're dividing by a negative you have to use the negative button down here. Negative. Out of focus again. I don't know what's going on with that today. And then 3, oops, I hit the wrong button. 3 ABC 8. So I get negative 2/3 plus negative 2/3. And I know we don't see this very often, but really what this means, this is the same thing as negative 2/3. All right, ready for this? What's a positive and a negative put together? Positive times a negative, because we pretend that's a -1. It's really just the same as a negative. So we really have negative 2/3 minus 2/3. You shouldn't really need a calculator for that, but let's pretend that we do. Negative 2ABC3 minus 2ABC3, and it gives you negative 1 1/3. Right. So like I said, the calculator is fine, and I know ultimately you get to use it, and I would suggest if you're not comfortable with this stuff to go ahead and use it, because it is a tool that is available. But I don't want you putting the whole thing in. So, all right, for recorded lessons, day 10, video 2, this is Mr. Sims signing off.